Welcome back. Taking your phone calls, 412-575-2600 on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. I want to remind everybody the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call brought to you by Ireland Contracting, Pittsburgh's #1 home exterior expert in roofing, siding, windows, and gutters. Taking your calls and also taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. We have Bobby O on Twitter who says home runs cost money. Here's the thing. You don't buy home runs necessarily. Players have to hit home runs to make the money. My counter argument to that would be when Gregory Polanco hit 22 home runs a couple seasons ago, he was making less than $600,000. When Josh Bell hit 26 and set the record for a rookie switch hitter in the National League, he was making less than $600,000 a year. It's not about home runs costing money. It's about making sure you pay the right people to hit home runs. And right now, they're not paying the right people to hit home runs because it was assumed, since they had done it in the past, that they would do it now. And clearly that assumption's been wrong. But just to claim that home runs cost money, that's not entirely an accurate statement, because we've seen young players hit home runs while they were making virtually nothing. Anthony Rizzo's one of them. Chris Bryant is still one of them, making relatively less money, yet hitting home runs. So I don't know if I completely understand or agree with that statement. We also have Mark, who has pretty much tweeted in with several exclamation points, gung, 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 please. I had this conversation with somebody off the air. We were talking about Jung-Ho Gung and when do you make this move. I will say this much. I'd rather give time to a guy like Jung-Ho Gung. I'd rather give at-bats and opportunities to a guy like Gung who has done certain things before that you're expecting him to do. Another guy who's actually hit 20 home runs in a season. I'd rather give him opportunities and at-bats to try to figure things out, knowing that he's done a certain thing before, like hit 20 home runs, than to a guy who's never done it before. I'd rather give him opportunities to get himself right than with a guy like Sean Rodriguez, whom after 10, 11 seasons, you pretty much know what he is. He pretty much is what he is, and he probably was what he was 5 or 6 years ago. Jung-Ho Gung, you know what you can get out of him. You know what his back can do. You know he can get on base and actually hit the ball with power at a decent clip. Give him those at-bats and let him go. I don't disagree with Mark, just with the thought of give us some at-bats to Jung-Ho Gung and see what happens. Let's go to the phone lines. We are going to start out with Josiah, who's calling all the way from San Antonio. Josiah, you were on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, Josh. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling in. Appreciate you.
No problem. I just wanted to make 3 quick points about the Steelers.
Go for it.
I think that Tomlin is losing control of the locker room. And AB's comments he made a few weeks ago about is he really free and he's sick of the pressure, but he's the one that forgot. He's the one that drove gold Rolls Royces. He's the one that's uploading Facebook videos, just silliness, and it just frustrates me listening to him talk this nonsense, trying to make it seem like it's the media when it's really him. The other 2 points I want to make, Josh, and I'll let you go, is Joey Porter. He had the incident on the South Side. Le'Veon Bell missing the walkthrough against Jacksonville. I mean, every other time you turn your head, it's like the Steelers got their heads in the wrong place, and I kind of think it's affecting them on the field. Appreciate the call, Josh.
Thanks for the call. The first thing, I don't attribute that to Mike Tomlin. What Antonio Brown does with his time on social media and what he does and everything he puts out there, that has nothing to do with Mike Tomlin. When he decides to drive a car to training camp, that has nothing to do with Mike Tomlin. The other 2 things, Joey Porter, Le'Veon Bell, to an extent, I can say, okay, you could see the need for Mike Tomlin to step in. And I imagine that he has. We probably haven't heard about it because he doesn't make those things public. But I imagine that he has. But everything Antonio Brown's doing and drawing attention to himself has nothing to do with his head coach. He's doing that on his own time, and he's doing that at his own volition, and he's pretty much subject to all the consequences that come with it. I don't put that on the head coach. I put that on him. And as far as pressure is concerned, you're the best wide receiver in the game. There's going to be pressure with what you do. There's going to be attention with what you do. But if you're going to amplify it, I can't see being surprised and asking yourself if you're really free if you're amplifying the attention that you're already bringing on yourself. That's just me personally, but just the thought. Tony in the Hill District. Tony, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hello, Josh. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm fine. I had asked Bob and Gene this question. I know we're way off. Of football right now.
About a month out from training camp. It'll be here before you know it.
I just wanted to ask you, how do you feel about this? Okay, the Steelers played the Patriots this year. Okay, don't nobody want to talk about it. I just want to know, what do you think that the Steelers have to do this year from the Patriots beating them at home again? This is what I want to know, because there ain't nobody trying to give me no feedback on it.
Where do you want to start? Do the small things well. Cut down on mistakes. Usually, the best way to beat New England is to limit your mistakes. Another good thing, I would go with have a better game plan when something happens like Jesse James's touchdown catch that was overturned, and you got 2 more shots at the end zone, and you saw how that turned out. Have a better game plan as far as or I shouldn't say game plan, but have a better plan of action as to what 2 plays you're going to call, knowing you probably got 2 shots at the end zone before the game is over. If you're going to do that, have 2 better plays in mind. Have better communication between the sideline and the field. I think that's a good place to start. And I might even go under the envelope of making better decisions and limiting your mistakes. That's another thing I would say. The next thing I would do, probably more doses of Juju Smith-Schuster. The reason why they even had a shot towards the end of the game is because Juju made a couple of plays, and that's what got him in that position. I'd say more of that. You're going to have to find ways to have other people make plays that aren't just Antonio Brown. Because what's the recurring theme when the Steelers play the Patriots? The Patriots make it a point to take away Antonio Brown. That means guys like Juju, guys like Jesse James, guys like, at the time, who were still members of the team, guys like Eli Rogers. They were required to step up. And to a degree, Juju did his job. Jesse James, we thought, did his job before the referees ruled that he hadn't scored, which is another big part of it, by the way. There's still that whole thing. If that touchdown counts, that game is probably won. So there's a lot to do there, but I would keep it down to those simple things. You're going to have to get other guys involved. You got to have better communication and better understanding from your coaching staff to your players and a better game plan. And you're going to have to cut down mistakes. Usually, that's the best way to go if you're going to beat a team like New England. We got Ken in Clearfield, then we'll take a break. Ken, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, how you doing, Josh?
Good, how are you?
Good. Hey, I've been playing baseball since I've been in Little League, since I've been 9 years old. Senior League, Legion Ball, American Legion Ball, every ball.
Okay.
And I'm telling you what, Sean Rodriguez, what is he doing? He can't bat his weight. He's batting 150. 150. His weight's a little bit higher than that. And plus, what's Clinton Hurdle doing still managing this baseball team? That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
I appreciate the call, Ken, but if you're blaming what's going on with Sean Rodriguez on Clint Hurdle, I got to remind you of something. If you have a team that's not doing what the manager's telling them to do, or being pretty much the things that they're supposed to do, that's the player's fault. Now, if they're not put in the right positions to win, or if they're not given the right opportunities to succeed, that's probably the coach's fault. If the coach doesn't have a good enough lineup of players to go out and do those things you need to do to win, that's probably your general manager's fault. If you don't have a good GM that's not making good decisions and you don't have the right resources for the GM to do his job properly, that's your owner's fault. But as far as Sean Rodriguez, I can't put that on Clint Hurdle because his only other option besides Jordy Mercer at shortstop right now is Sean Rodriguez. That's not the manager's fault. That's the guy who's picking the groceries, and Clint Hurdle's got to cook the meal. So if the plate doesn't come out great and the food doesn't taste right and the ingredients aren't right, you got to blame that on the guy that buys the groceries, right? That would be my interpretation. Taking a break, we come back, taking more phone calls. We still got the Sizzling Shot coming up. Stick around.